Law and Justice segment tonight, a top aide to Debbie Wasserman Schultz was arrested this week trying to flee to Pakistan. His name is Imran Awan. Awan was arrested boarding a flight after wiring $283,000 from the Congressional Federal Credit Union to Pakistan. Now, the funny part of this story is Debbie Wasserman Schultz refused to fire Awan until this week, even though Awan had been under FBI investigation for months. Now, this is a complicated story. With me now to break it down, investigative reporter at the Daily Caller News Foundation, Luke Rosiak. Luke, good to see you.
You too.
All right, Luke, we have a lot of information here. I want to make sure that our viewers understand this story bullet point by bullet point, because not a lot of the other networks are covering this. Even though they're very concerned with collusion and corruption when it comes to the Republican Party, if it's Democrats involved in it, they don't care. So let's start out with the man himself. This is Imran Awan. He was the chief IT aide to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who at the time was chair of the DNC. He was arrested Monday. Luke, why was he arrested?
Well, the Capitol Police have been investigating him since February for a couple different things. Cybersecurity issues in terms of data apparently going to an off-site server for unknown purposes, and then also a variety of financial schemes. I've been writing about this guy for 5 months now, and I found a lot of really troubling things in his background, many of which probably should have been caught or would have been known by members who did continue to pay these guys for 10 years. And some of those financial schemes are what the FBI eventually charged him with, a mortgage fraud issue. But that charge is a placeholder because the investigation is continuing. On Sunday night, I published a story saying that the FBI had joined what was previously thought to be a Capitol Police-only investigation, and that the FBI had seized hard drives from this guy's house. The day after that story went up, Imran went to the airport and tried to board a flight to Pakistan through Qatar. And that's when the FBI, who had been surveilling his house, stopped him from boarding the plane and booked him with the charges that were available to them at the time, which was basically mortgage fraud. And that's something that I've written in my articles. He seems to have done a number of times through all these properties that he owns around Virginia.
Right. So talk to me then about these hard drives. Clearly, that was the element of this story that scared him enough to try to flee the country, wire all his money to Pakistan and flee the country. I mean, what did they expect? What did he expect, do you think, that they would find on these hard drives?
Well, the timing is, as you said, but I mean, we can't really know what's in his head. It does seem like that. But the wiring of the $300,000, which was from a bank branch in his house office building, occurred back in January. And that basically he told the bank that it was for funeral expenses, a $300,000 funeral. And the bank said, we can't accept that excuse. And he literally said, hold on the phone, I want to Google what excuse you'll have to accept. And the bank guy said, okay. And he Googled and he said, okay, I'm buying property over there. That's why I want to send the money. And so the bank guy said, I'm going to allow this, this transfer to go through. 2 months later, in March, his wife left the country successfully and is over in Pakistan, we assume, with this money. Customs and Border Patrol did search her as she boarded that flight and found $12,000 in cash hidden in her suitcase. She also had all of her possessions, indicating that she doesn't plan on coming back to the U.S., but they did not stop her from boarding that. So Imran was attempting to join his wife and go over to Pakistan, where that $300,000 has been waiting for several months now.
Right, and one of the reasons that this is troubling, one of the reasons this isn't just someone attempting to go back to where they were born, because that is where he's from, is the fact that this guy had access to the email accounts of a lot of Democratic congressmen. He has information on them if he wants to have information on them, if he read their emails. He also had the password of Debbie Wasserman Schultz's iPad at the time that she was the DNC chair, meaning he had access to whatever he wanted, anything that she was working on at the DNC. At the same time, and this is where it becomes very troubling, at the same time, this guy, Luke, owed over $100,000 to a Hezbollah-linked individual.
So Imran uses a variety of individuals as like pass-throughs for these different financial schemes. That's what my 6-month investigation indicated. And one of the things that he did is right after he started working for Wasserman Schultz, 4 of his relatives and 2 of his friends appeared on the congressional payroll at very high salaries, like salaries that only a chief of staff makes. and they took in $4 million in all since 2009. Of course, members of Congress did have to agree to put people on their payroll. Imran didn't have the power to do that himself, but he seems to have somehow caused that to happen, and so he's got all these people, and meanwhile, the same time that he and two of his brothers are supposed to be working full-time on the Hill, they also start this limited liability corporation, which is supposedly a car dealership. And they're supposedly managing this car dealership during that same time that they're working on the Hill. And this car dealership ran into some financial trouble and took a $100,000 loan from an Iraqi politician who is now wanted by the Department of Justice.
Right, and like I said, that's where it becomes very troubling, because now a man, Imran Awan, owes money to a terror-linked individual who is wanted by the U.S. government, and Awan has access to the email addresses and the password to Debbie Wasserman Schultz's iPad. I mean, I think there's a vulnerability there to blackmail, and I guess he was just fired from his position this week on Tuesday, even though he's been under FBI investigation for months now. House investigators actually told House members months ago that he wasn't allowed to have access to the Capitol network anymore. What took Wasserman Schultz so long to fire him?
Yeah, everything you said is exactly true. They really did have access to emails of House members, including those on sensitive committees, as they operated this totally different thing that owed $100,000 to this Iraqi politician. This is in public court documents. I've been sending these documents to members of Congress for several months now. Most of the members fired him, if not immediately after the investigation was made public back in February, and he was named as a criminal suspect in a cybersecurity probe. Several individuals did resist firing him at that time. They said it's probably Islamophobic, even though they had seen much of the evidence against these guys indicating real problems.
Right.
And they said other things like that. But ultimately, Wasserman Schultz was the only person who held out more than a couple weeks, and it's been like 5 months now that she's refused to fire this guy, despite all the evidence. And we don't know why that is, but Capitol Police also seized a laptop from a House office building that was used by Imran. And Wasserman Schultz has blocked them from using it as evidence by saying this is her laptop, and because of the speech and debate clause, congressional privilege, it's her laptop, and they're not allowed to see what's on it. And
Right.
Capitol Police have said, well, this is important to an ongoing investigation, and she's been very insistent. Even telling the Capitol Police that there would be consequences in the context of a budget hearing if they didn't give back this laptop. So that's what we're seeing here is that she hasn't wanted to fire him, and she hasn't really been cooperating with police and making sure they get the evidence they need. But as for the reason, I mean, we don't know that.
No, we don't know that, but it's certainly a question I think we need to be asking here. It almost makes you wonder if Imran Awan has some sort of information on Debbie Wasserman Schultz, if he's perhaps blackmailing her or threatening her in some case, because not only did she not fire him when he was under FBI investigation after he'd had all this high security clearance access to their emails, she impeded the investigation, refused to cooperate with the police, and then almost threatened them. Like you said, oh, there will be consequences if you take this laptop. You'd think she'd want justice to be served here.